Today I'm going to talk about the types of dark night of the soul that we may experience, and I want to be able to help us perhaps differentiate between what we might class as a spiritual dark night and what maybe isn't a spiritual dark night of the soul and is actually perhaps more of a just depression. If you're going through this, I know how hard it can be, so if you wish to listen, this video is for you. So, there are a few different types of dark night of the soul that you will experience. And of course, I'm not the finished product. Let me turn that off. Not the finished product. I haven't finished my spiritual journey. If anybody told you that they have, they're lying. Because as we know, deep down there's a feeling that this spiritual journey will continue. We are spiritual beings having the human experience. So in that sense, this journey will continue forever. There will be no end to it. But I can only give you what is currently my experience, and I have had a couple of different dark nights of the soul, and I've had a couple of different versions of dark nights of the soul. For example, some of which spiritual, and some of which just probably a depression. Although my life has flowed through almost a spiritual, it has been quite a spiritual life the whole way through. There were definite points actually looking back now when I can see what it was that was making some of the dark nights of the soul not really spiritual and more of the body and of the personality, shall we say. So the dark night of the soul, really, if we're talking about a spiritual one, like I just said there, it will be less of the body and less of the mind and the personality, less of Jamie's issue. It will be more of a spiritual hijacking, really, of your entire system. And it's good to know because it really means that below the surface of the personality and below the surface level of the feelings, the emotions, there's actually something deeper going on. A lot deeper. Perhaps that we could say is almost a graduation from biology to spirit. If we can speak like this. I don't mean that literally, I just mean our awareness increases as we go through this spiritual dark night of the soul. If it is a spiritual one, we do begin to become more spiritually aware, because that is exactly what's happening. We're changing inside, we're realising who we really are beyond what we thought we were before. It actually becomes quite obvious as well to us in every waking moment after we go through these dark nights of the soul, which I'm going to get into in a moment, how obvious it always was that we were so much more than this body, and how we missed the clues. The clues are literally everywhere, always were. We just were never listening to them or looking at them. And we can call this synchronicity. And as we wake up, we do begin to realise, we do begin to see the clues that were always there, but we weren't paying attention. We were always here, but we were never really fully involved with what was really happening. So I'm going to jump into a couple of different dark nights of the soul. Before I do that, down below there's a free guided meditation that is essentially a breathing exercise. It'll be very different to any guided meditation you've done before, but it will be able to increase your awareness around the limiting beliefs that are actually causing the pain and holding you into the dark night of the soul much longer than you need to be. So should you wish to do that and accelerate your awakening, you're more than welcome to join me on there. And of course, if you like, you're more than welcome to join me on my channel. I'm trying to build out a spiritual toolkit, should we say. It's getting a bit cliche now, I almost say that in every video, but it is true. It was a toolkit that I was able to use, given to me by my teacher, and through learning, through synchronicity, how this is all playing out within me. So these are things that helped me, and in that sense they'll probably help you, but that's for you to decide. So if you wish to join me there, you're more than welcome to. Back to the video. I feel I've experienced definitely 3, maybe 4 dark nights of the soul in my life. 2 of which I would say were not spiritual, 2 of which definitely were. The first 2, although they were dark nights, I don't think they were spiritual, and I'm going to tell you for why. When you're in a dark night of the soul, especially one of the early ones, they almost feel like that potentially, not that you're faking it, but this is just my experience of it now that I've been through these spiritual dark nights of the soul, but it's more surface level. So these dark nights of the soul are a little bit to do with the way that you're experiencing your external life, for example. They're like, oh, things aren't going right, or it might come after a breakup, let's say, and you're feeling sad because you feel like you've lost something externally, or you're feeling sad because you want attention from yourself, really. It's more like yourself is crying out for you to give the attention to yourself that you haven't been. Meaning being kinder to yourself rather than judging yourself and telling yourself you're not good enough for losing this ex-partner, or for allowing yourself to go through the grieving process, for example, of losing a loved one. So these dark nights of the soul are more, I'm only going to spend a couple of seconds on these because I want to jump into the spiritual ones. These ones are more of the personality, should we say. They're more of the emotion. It's not to say these next ones, the dark nights of the soul that are spiritual, aren't of emotion and aren't of the personality, because they are, but in a different way, in a deeper sense. So, moving on to the first spiritual dark night of the soul that you will encounter, as I have encountered it, and as I did encounter it. The way that it panned out for me, after I had a Kundalini awakening, which most of you on this channel have either been through or at least know what it is by this point. So I won't go into what a Kundalini awakening is. I may make a video on that at some point. After you've gone through your Kundalini awakening, conscious or unconscious of it, you will begin to go through a process of, I call this one the dark night of the will. When we're quite young in our spiritual journey, in our early stages, I only know this because I did it too, there's no judgment here, we kind of want to replicate, perhaps, or begin to draw into ourselves spiritual experiences, and we do that through our ego, through our mind. So this is why I call this the dark night of the will, because we're trying to will in spiritual progress or spiritual experiences that we would find joyous or blissful, or perhaps spiritual experiences that we've had before. We're trying to draw those back in with our minds and with our will. We're willing it to happen. And as we know, through focus and through attention, we can't bring these experiences back to us, or we can't really initiate new experiences. And if we do, it's very limited. And this process can be very frustrating. And it is essentially the first spiritual dark night of the soul, because although it may not really come with pain, it may do. It may come with a sadness, like maybe I've lost an experience, like a Kundalini awakening or something, and you're left in the dark, but it will come with a hell of a lot of frustration, because you're beginning to try and use your ego's will to draw in experiences that you once previously had or want to have in the future. And we begin to realise that our will and our ego, the will of our ego, excuse me, I'm a little bit sick, the will of our ego can't draw these experiences to us. Our ego, in our spiritual pursuit, is very limited. And we rub up against this in our first dark night of the soul because we realise that our will is limited. We can't draw these experiences in. We know that because we've tried. We've really tried to force it with our minds, but obviously it's brought no fruits. It may have brought some things towards us, may have attracted into our lives certain experiences, but it won't be really what we were looking for. And you'll know that through your experience. And this is definitely the first dark night of the soul, the dark night of the will, where we realise that our will egotistically is not bringing in, it's very limited. If we can't put our attention on our ego to try and control our spiritual progression, because we begin to realise through this dark night of the soul, passing through the gate of the end of this dark night of the soul is the realisation that this is going to come from somewhere deeper. I'll our progress spiritually comes from somewhere deeper. The drive, the true drive for our spiritual undertakings needs to come from a deeper feeling if it is to be genuine. That's the first dark night of the soul that I experienced. And that one certainly is spiritual. So as we get used to this connection to our deeper sense of self being the controlling factor here, and we can't really control that. So we are, in essence, not stuck, but we then really have to pay attention more and more to this inner feeling, this inner guidance system, because we know that trying to create experiences through our will, our egotistical will, won't work, doesn't work, and leaves us in really shitty places. When I say our will, I mean trying to make a girlfriend happen. I mean trying to make spiritual experiences happen. I mean trying to recreate a Kundalini rising. So this will is limited, and we know that because we can't then draw these experiences to us, and thank God we can't, because it teaches us a very fundamental lesson spiritually, which is we're not in control of this situation, not in control of our spiritual growth. Until we begin to pay attention to who we really are, this feeling, this inner, as soon as we drop our will into our being, we then perhaps have quite a while after that, after we come out of that dark night of the soul, of real bliss, real joy, happiness, natural happiness. And we will spend extended periods of time just sitting in our being, sitting in the heart space, and really enjoying every moment that there is to enjoy. After that, a second dark night of the soul, which tends to be the hardest dark night of the soul you'll ever go through, from what I read and from my experience of it. Because after we have our awakening, obviously I don't know this to be true as a fact, because I've only been through 2, there may well be more dark nights of the soul. But through my reading and through my understanding, it is these first 2 which are the most difficult, because we're newly bred into the spiritual world at this point. We're little fledglings, and it does seem to be that these 2 are the most painful, and they are the ones where we grow the quickest, if we take the opportunity to do so, which I'm sure, as eager beavers as we all are, we're all doing that. The second spiritual dark night of the soul is perhaps the hardest. It goes to your core, and it will cause pain in your belly and in your heart, and raise anxieties and fears that you never really knew that you had, but that you had repressed throughout your whole life. Perhaps because when you were a child, you didn't quite have the maturity to be able to deal with the things that were coming at you. And these are hard. These are hard to be able to deal with because they catch you by surprise, especially at the start. I've got a video that says the 4 stages of the dark night of the soul, and this is the dark night of the soul that I'm talking about. Not the first one, the second one, the brutal one, the one that tears you limb from limb. And it is this dark night of the soul where all of those repressed feelings, for example, if somebody shoots you down or was really nasty to you, they flare up an insecurity within you, right? The only reason we have that insecurity, let's say, is because we were taught to believe that to be true about ourselves in our childhood. And the reason we believed that to be true about ourselves in the childhood was because it came from an external, this is our conditioning really, it came from an external person that we really believe their words are true, like a parent, like a friend. So we take these things on and we repress because we couldn't really deal and filter this through our system and say, actually, that's not really true about myself in that time. We believe these to be true and we take them on and we repress them and deny them for our whole entire lives. So when we get to this next dark night of the soul, this is really where our awareness kicks in, where we get to change then these repressed feelings and these deep, dark, repressed, untrue things about ourselves. We get to deal with them, they come up. Our energy is now at such a high level that it can't sit dormant anymore. We can't deny it about ourselves anymore. And this is an amazing opportunity, but it is bloody hard. It hurts a lot. You'll cry. a lot. But as you begin to come out the other side of it, you're so thankful, so thankful that you did the deep inner work in order to actually change these limiting beliefs or these negative definitions that you have about yourself or about your experience of life. This is really what this next dark night of the soul is about. Unconscious pain, increasing our awareness through our sadhana or through our spiritual practice about what's causing the pain. And I won't go into this too much because I always do, and there's no need for it right now because there's plenty of videos on my channel about it, of how we change this pain and how we begin to become aware of the definitions or the beliefs that are there. But this next dark night of the soul, this is existential. This isn't just of the will anymore. This is getting down to the real core of what is holding you back in life. And the reason why this one is so spiritual in nature is because your spirit, who you really are deep down, this clean slate that comes into this existence at the start before it's conditioned, knows itself to be God or awareness or bliss itself. And it's only when we cover that up with our negative definitions and through our conditioning, these things that we believe to be true about ourselves when they're not, it's at that point, this is why this is such a spiritual one, because your spirit knows these things aren't true, never were, but because we're in this human vehicle, we're a bit stupid sometimes, we're a bit silly. No judgment, we all do it. It seems to be the human condition, the way that the world is. We believe these things to be true about ourselves, and it's at this point now where the spirit has had enough. And it's almost burping out, it's like a purge, it burps out all of the crap, really, that we've been so silly to believe. No judgment again, because we all did it. We're all young, we're all naive, we all tend to believe things that other people tell about us to be true. I still do it now. So this is our second spiritual dark night of the soul. The purge of negative beliefs. But the more we purge, the more light we allow back in. Let's call the negative beliefs almost like a cloudy day, the cloud in the sky. And as we purge these negative beliefs from ourselves one by one, more light is then able to come back in, and we're almost removed from the dark night of the soul. What I just said there is quite limiting because it's just words, really. It doesn't really explain the experience of how it actually plays out within you, but I hope I can speak like that. So far, I've had 2 spiritual dark nights of the soul. I've read there are more. Maybe there is. Maybe there aren't. I don't know. I can only take you as far as I've gone. But it's quite likely that if you're listening to my videos, that there's a reason, and it's quite likely that you'll be in one of these 2. I hope what I described there was a description through which you'd be able to decipher which one you're in. It's quite likely, again, if you've been attracted to one of these videos, that you're in a spiritual dark night of the soul. It's just for you to decide which one you're in. I hope it helps. So, yeah. If you've got any questions, put them down below. And of course, please, I would be very much indebted to you if you subscribed. Also, one more thing. If you are beginning to get a feeling to share these sort of things, because I know some of you are, and some of you know a lot about this sort of stuff, please be warned that there are people out there, very unconscious, unfortunately, and although you're sharing from your heart, and you feel like you're doing the best that you can in every moment, and you're only trying to help people, people will shoot you down. And it takes a certain strength and a certain readiness to be able to come out and speak this sort of stuff. And I'm hopefully empowering you yourself to be able to do that. But I want to let you know that that's the way that it works out. I had one guy that came on my channel yesterday. I don't know how he got on there. He knew nothing about yoga or anything. And he wrote this message on one of the Dark Night of the Soul videos, and he said, "What the are you talking about, you sexist piece of..." And I was sat there and I was thinking, where on earth did that come from? For you guys that are my audience, that watch my videos, you know that that's a completely irrelevant statement. None of my videos are about any of those things, and I don't know how I attracted it in at all. He then went one step further. I must have annoyed him so much somehow to thumbs down every single one of my videos that I've ever made all the way from the start. So that must have taken some effort, right? I'm just warning you that there are negative energies out there. And although you can do as much as you can within yourself to try and not attract those negative energies in, they're going to come. And they're going to come with a vengeance for no logical reason whatsoever. So if you are thinking about being that brave person, that courageous person that begins to speak their truth, then I respect you and I love you. And I wish you the best. And be warned that some negative energy may well come at you. I hope it doesn't, but it likely will. There's still a lot of unconscious in our collective. Anyway, that will do. Thank you very much for listening. And of course, peace.